All right, all right, all right. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to. Normally, I say this is Photo Mechanic 101, but I think today we'll say this is 201 or maybe 301. It's pretty advanced. But welcome. This is a webinar to go over hot codes and code replacements in general, but specifically hot codes in Photo Mechanic. Thanks everyone for stopping in. I've had a lot of requests for this webinar, so we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'll wait a couple more minutes for people to come in here. Although if you do miss something, you can rewatch this whole webinar after it's over at the same link. So keep that in mind. Oh, Howard Lau in the chat. That's a good reminder. Yes, you can chat in the chat box. I will try to keep an eye on it, though no promises. My attention might get distracted, but I believe Howard, it's good to see you. You will we'll see some of Howard's photos that I use in some of my demos. They're going to be in here. So Howard, great to see you as well. Good to see everyone here. Thank you very much for coming. And also, yes, if you check the description of this video, you should see a link to a PDF of this document. This is sort of my notes for the document. I have a lot of whatever I go over in the webinar. There's going to be all this content. This is in a PDF that's available in the description of this video. So hit that up if you need it. There's a lot. It's a big document. There's a lot of this content here. I'm going to go over some introduction, some caveats. We're going to discuss basic code replacement just to give you a refresher on that. Hot codes. There's a little bit of history of the hot codes development here, which I probably won't cover in the webinar, but it's in the document. And we'll some general advice. There's a template that I've set up that I've also shared with you in the description of this video, so you can check that out as well. But then we're going to do some demos. We're going to do some demos of using hot codes to route files to specific folders, a demo to apply some metadata to files during ingest based on the in-camera folders, and a demo of applying metadata to photos from a spreadsheet. Those are three big use cases for hot codes in Photo Mechanic. All right, here. Got people coming in. That's great to see. Good, Christian. Hello, Mr. Marcus. How are you doing? Hope you're doing very well. And I will repeat this one more time. There is in the description of this video a link to a PDF that has these webinar notes and all this content. There are also links to other helpful links to documentation and links to the template that I like to use. I've created a template in Google Sheets, and we'll cover why I do that. But there's a template that I like to use to start my code replacement files with. All right, let's get underway. If you come in late, you probably can't hear what I'm saying, but if you do come in late, you can rewatch this video from the beginning after it's over by clicking on the same link, the same YouTube link after it's over. So this is hot codes in Photo Mechanic. We're going to be going over the use of hot codes, how to build a hot code file, and we're going to demonstrate how they work. I'll get right into Photo Mechanic here. But some caveats first. There's going to be things that happen in here that are a little bit beyond basic. I'm going to assume that you know some of the basics about how to rate images, how to cull images, how to view images, basically working with metadata templates, metadata info window, that sort of thing, and that you have a passing familiarity with variables. If you do not have familiarity with these topics, there are links in the description for tutorials on those basics. But to really get working on hot codes, I want to just assume that you have the basics of Photo Mechanic down. Also, I want to say that hot codes are a very difficult concept to sort of wrap your head around. It's been difficult for me. It's been difficult for a lot of people internally here to get a hold on exactly how to describe it, how to help people with it. It's a very interesting feature, but the people who do master it save a ton of time. So stick with it. You'll be able to rewatch this video. You can watch it again and again. I will probably go too fast at some point because there's going to be things that whiz by. You can certainly ask me in the chat any questions, and if I see them, I will try to answer them. But yeah, this is good stuff. What else? Let me check my notes here. So this is the first time I've done this actual webinar. So it's new to me, so I'm going to check my notes every once in a while to make sure I'm not missing anything. But yeah, I wanted to say that hot codes require you to have a mental model in your mind of how data is represented and how systems of data are represented. And hot codes rely on basically a dynamic set of data that references another dynamic or ever-changing system of data. So how your mental model sets up can differ from other people. So that's why explaining it has turned to be a little bit difficult. But we'll see how I do. All right, let's start at the basics of code replacement. So this is something you probably should know if you use Photo Mechanic, but I want to cover it because it'll give us a basis for how we're going to talk about code replacements. Code replacement is very simply when you insert a code or a text shortcut of just a few characters, and that gets replaced by some longer string that you need to insert into your metadata, whether that be the caption, whether that be a folder path, whether that be a keyword field, any place you enter in, type anything into Photo Mechanic, you can insert a code replacement to take some of the work out of that for you. So here we have some images from a soccer game that were shot by Howard Lau, who's in the audience right now. Howard, again, thank you very much for these images. And I just wanted to show basically how code replacement works. I'm going to go and show you my code replacement file for these images. So let's go into, I'm going to use Google Sheets, and I'll tell you this right off the bat. Code replacement files are plain text files. They are plain text files that are tab separated files, separated by tabs. When you create these files, they need to be plain text. They can't be actual spreadsheets themselves. However, because programs like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel, are good at working with data in columns and being able to move things around and copy things very easily, a lot of people, especially me, like to use them to create code replacement files. It makes working with moving things around much more easier. It keeps everything in columns, even if the columns aren't the same width. So I will create my code replacement files in something like Google Sheets, and then I will download it as a TSV file, and you can do this in Excel as well. So here's tab separated value file, and if I go over to my downloads window, I put it in a folder called PM parts that I just most of my associated Photo Mechanic files end up in a folder called PM parts. So that's one of my commonly used folders, and I put it in there. And when I'm in Photo Mechanic, we're going to go to the Edit, Settings, Set Code Replacements, or you can use the keyboard shortcut for on a Mac. That's Control Command C. I believe that's Control Alt C on a Windows machine. And we have some code replacements. Now you can have multiple code replacement files running at the same time, but there's a trick if you want to have multiple hot codes files running at the same time, and I will cover that a little bit later. I'm going to remove this first of all. I'm going to add that one I just downloaded. And we can see if you want to actually work on the file as a text file, there's a button in here that says Edit. It will open that file in a text editor, your text editor. Let's do this one, in fact, better. And we can see this is what the file looks like in a text editor. All those columns that were in my spreadsheet are here separated by tabs. And they have the player jersey number with a little 2-digit code to indicate which team. Another column that has the last name, and then another column with the player's position. This is a very basic code replacement file. You can have as many columns as you need, and many people have different uses for this, but this is just the basics. And how these work is if we're in these photos, let me narrow down to some of my favorites here. Oh, there's Larry. And say now I'm in here, and I'm writing a caption for this image. I would use the code replacement with the equals PT8 code, and it expands to Diego Valeri. That's the player there. That way, if you're writing captions, this can speed up captions. This is kind of the classic use of code replacements in sports photography, but you can use it in pretty much anything. It can save you. And if you have multiple columns in your code replacement file, you can specify that by adding a column number. We'll do PT8 third column, and we'll close that with the equals, and it puts in the player's position, essentially. And then you can finish your caption as you want. So there's Howard's credit information there. Check out Howard. He's a fantastic photographer, but he's also very, very good at workflow, and very active on Twitter as well. So he's a good person to follow. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is basic code replacement. All right. Back to my notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So, right, let's get this out of the way. Hot codes are sort of an advanced version of code replacements. Hot codes are code replacements, except the code is not a static string like PT8, but rather a dynamic hot code that can reference different things depending on the file that it's actually looking at. And remember, this is going to get complicated and it's going to be difficult to wrap your head around. But let's call open my hot codes template file that I've created. So this is my just a basic starting point for a code replacement file with hot codes. Hot codes are like code replacements, with the major difference being that your codes are going to be in this horizontal row here, starting with the // number, or hash / hash. And what hot codes do is, instead of just replacing hot code with one specific thing, it's actually going to look in the metadata that exists for that file, and based on whatever that metadata is and what it finds in that metadata, it will add in different replacements. So let me try to explain this. The hot code, if I insert hot code 1 in square brackets into a file, it's going to check that file, check the variables for that file, whether that be the serial number, whether that be the file name, or whether that be the folder name. And if it finds any of these strings in those variables for that specific file, it will insert a replacement based on what that string is. And we'll get into an example here and you'll be able to see. It will probably make more sense when we get into doing this. But yeah, as I said, this is, and you can make a copy of this file for yourself if you want to and use it. I recommend doing that. But whatever works for you. You can use a plain text editor as well. But again, just to repeat, the important thing is that these are columns separated by tabs, and your ultimate file, as it gets loaded into PhotoMechanic, will be plain text. All right. So this is this enables a large or opens up a wide swath of automation in PhotoMechanic that was not previously available to just plain code replacements. The fact that you can look at multiple bits of metadata in the file and insert codes dynamically that way can really speed up your workflow as you master them. So we'll get into that. I also want to take a second here to point out that to master this and to really make your workflow sing with hot codes and with anything in life, basically, doing prep work up front is going to, doing maybe 15 minutes of prep work on getting your hot codes file and your template set up before you actually go out on a shoot can save you hours and hours after the shoot. So it's always good to kind of have that mindset that you're going to do some advanced work to save your time in the future. All right, let me explain a little bit more. So let me back up and explain the basics of this hot code file. So this hot code file, whenever you see the // this means this is going to be a comment. So PhotoMechanic will ignore all the lines that start with //. // with $2 indicates a namespace, but this is only necessary if you're using multiple hot code files at once. Otherwise, you can delete that. I find that very rarely myself using that, but it's good to know, and I will demonstrate that at the very end just for people who need that. I have another comment here. These are the variables we're going to be looking at, and then we're going to name the hot codes in this, and we're going to have one line and one line only with // hash with the actual hot codes. This is probably the most important line because these are what you're going to be inserting in your metadata. In other words, where you would normally insert in using code replacements equals PT8, you'll be inserting square brackets hot code 1 or whatever you actually put in your hot codes. And then it will look in these variables for these strings and replace it with the content here. And this line with // question mark is sort of the default replacement. If within your file you put in hot code 1 and PhotoMechanic looks in these variables and does not find string 1, 2, or 3, it will insert whatever you put in this column for that hot code. So that's for hot code 1, it would be default. Hot code 2 would be replacements. Hot code 3, the default would be here. All right. And that's it. Let's look at an actual hot code file. So here's a hot code file for the first demo that we're going to do. We're going to be routing hot codes. We're going to be using hot codes to route files to specific folders. In fact, let's go into Photo Mechanic and take a look at these files. To be sorted. Let's open this up. So here we have a folder with a lot of random photos from different photographers. Different photographers have taken these images using different cameras. And I want to sort these files into folders based on the photographer that took them. You could do that with previously using a mix of code replacements and variables with the serial number variable. However, some of these images were taken with an iPhone, and some of these images don't have a serial number. So hot codes was basically a response to this sort of situation. This was sort of the basic genesis of hot code, being able to do code replacements when you had multiple sources of information. So, for example, we have these files, and some of them are. Let's go back to the file. Look at itself. So, some of these files have we know the serial numbers of one of Mick's cameras. We know the serial numbers of Dennis's cameras. We do not know the serial number of Craig's camera, but we know that he puts his camera writes his name into the photographer field of his files, right into the that's in camera. So we know that happens. So we can search there, and we know Katie's camera has this serial number. So with the combination of serial numbers, metadata, and the model of the camera, we can search these three fields. And so let's go back to Photo Mechanic. We're going to be selecting all these, and we're going to route these. I'm going to open up the copy move dialog, and we're going to make sure yeah, okay. So we're going to create a subfolder. We're going to create a folder called sorted, and then it's going to say there's a hot code here. Hot codes are denoted by square brackets, always square brackets, and it's folder. So what does this mean when I say sorted hot code for folder? We'll go back to the hot code file. It means so whenever Photo Mechanic sees the hot code folder, it will say, all right, folder, search for that particular file, search the serial number. Do you see any of these strings in the serial number field? If yes, replace folder with whatever this is. If you don't find this if you go through the serial number and don't find these, check the model field. If you find the model, then insert that for wherever you see folder, and so on. If you don't see anything in the model variable for that specific file, check the photographer field. If you see any of these strings, then insert this for folder. Go back into Photo Mechanic. At the same time of these files, we're going to apply metadata to these files. Let's clear this. And we're going to just do, in the credit field, we're going to put David's name. So that's the hot code name. And we'll go back to the hot code file here. Whenever it sees the hot code for name, again, it's going to go through the same thing. It's going to look through these fields. If it finds this bit of information in these fields, it will insert that. So all the images that have that in this group that were shot with an iPhone 8, wherever it sees name, it will insert Miko, and whenever it sees a folder, it will insert A. So back into Photo Mechanic. This is going to be our. We have all this. We're going to copy the file, so we'll have the originals to go back and look at them. But let's go ahead and copy these, and we'll note this. Here's my folder in my favorites file, to be sorted. Let's do this. Copy. There we go. It's created a subfolder, sorted, and I forgot to load the code replacement file. Unfortunate. I knew I was going to forget that. Let's move that to trash and try again. Sorry. We said a little bit. Let's download this as a TSV. To Finder. PM parts. Place that because I've done this a few times. Back into Photo Mechanic. The keyboard shortcut, by the way, Command Control C to get to the code replacement list. That's a basic code replacement file, so I can leave that in. Let's add this. It has hot codes, the sorting. All right. Let's try this again. So again, we selected all these files. We open the copy move dialog. We have the hot code for folder. We have the hot code in our IPTC template, and we'll do this, copy. So there we go. To be sorted now has a subfolder sorted, and it has subfolders A, B, C, D, and E, as we saw in our code replacement file. And within the B folder, there's all the images taken by Dennis. We can see I put Dennis in the file name so that we just knew that this was actually working correctly. Here's all the images from CM's camera, Craig Mitchell-Dyer, another friend of Camera Bits. In this folder, all the ones from KZ, KDZ. And then E, we'll go back to the code replacement file here. I wanted to point this out. So we have as I said, there's the sort of the exception list, which was folder E for when Photo Mechanic didn't find this data in any of these fields. So let's go back into Photo Mechanic. In folder E, this picture was actually taken by Pablo with a camera we didn't recognize. So this got filed into E because it didn't recognize any of the data. So that's keeping that exception row can keep you organized and lets you know like what your hot codes didn't see, and then you can go back and look at those. And we'll see an even better example of this in the next aspect of the demo. But yes, and then here's all the ones for me. So all the folders, all these have been sorted in. I think Danny had asked me that in Todd's music photography Discord. I know you were curious about working with workflow with files from multiple photographers. I hope that's helpful to you. If not, let me know if you have any other questions about this or anything else. By the way, you're always free to hit me up, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's via email. I'm mick@camerabits.com. Always happy to talk about this stuff. And yeah, it can be difficult to wrap your head around. So feel free to reach out to me and go over the finer points of this. So Danny, I hope that was helpful. All right, let's close these out here. Let's get into the next part of the demo. This is sort of the fun stuff. This is one's fun for me. The next part of the demo, I'm going to. In fact, I'm just going to do this before I get into the actual demo because I want you to see what we're working towards before we actually get into the nitty gritty. Because this is getting kind of it's kind of boring to go through all these details without seeing it in action. I want to do the demo first. It's going to go fast. You're not going to recognize everything that's going to happen, but you're going to see how it ends up. And then we'll go back and go through it step by step and show how it was done. Because I think this is important to see this in action so you have an idea of what we're doing. I have a memory card in here. And on this memory card, imagine I just got back from a music festival. On this memory card are images from 4 different sets at 3 different stages. So 4 different artists. At a music festival on a certain date with certain names, and there are also some other files in there, some scenes just from the grounds and whatnot. And these files are just raw files on the camera card. They're not tagged. They have no keywords. They have generic names like PT00234, things like that. But we're going to ingest this. Actually, let's first of all let's cancel this and load in my code replacement file for these. So we can see how this is going to work. And I have this pre-done. So this is going to be the concert. I'm going to get rid of sorting for now because we'll do the multiple hot codes at the end. So we're going to have the code replacement file for the concerts, and we'll take a look at this actual sheet in a minute, but I want to show you how this actually works. All right, go back to the ingest. We're going to use the template that I've come up with for the this concert. We're going to check the metadata template here. Here's the metadata template. It's a lot of things in here. A mixture of code replacements, classic code replacements with the equals, code replacements for hot codes in square brackets, and just straight on variables with the curly brackets. So those are sort of like the 3 main types of metadata shortcuts you'll see in Photo Mechanic. So let's close that. And let's give this an ingest, and hopefully this works. Fingers crossed. Okay, here comes the images in from the card. And by the way, there's only like a handful of images from each set because I wanted to get this ingest over with within a minute so you could see how this works. But within our file here, Photo Mechanic has created a folder with today's date. It's created a subfolder with the event, which was Pickathon. It's created subfolders with all the artist names that performed at the festival. Each of these files are in their own folder, which are all up here in Photo Mechanic. If we look at one of these images, check out the metadata, we have name, description with the actual band name in the caption, the keywords, now have the band name in the caption, string there, along with all this other information, all done. This was all done during the ingest. This was all added in this process based on my hot code file and my metadata template. If we go into, like I said, another folder and check out the metadata here, metadata is different for this one. Shaky Graves at Pickathon. The actual name of the stage he was on, which is different from the other images. All this is dynamic. All happened just during the ingest. So, if I'm coming back from a music festival and if I've done the 15 minutes of work beforehand, having this organization for me would have been amazing. And I wish I had known this much, much sooner. I wish hot codes had been around back when I was a younger man, as they say. But I find this very, very impressive myself, so I wanted to show this in action. And now we'll go back and see how this is done, because it's a mixture of code replacements, variables, and hot codes. So the first thing, the most important thing that you want to know is that this was all enabled by shooting each stage to a different folder on the card. Most major cameras can do this now. I know it's very easy on Nikon. I know it's pretty easy on Canon. I know it's possible on Fuji. Those are the only three that I personally have experience with. But I'm pretty sure most of the others can do this. So the workflow in the field is you need to know your folders in advance, or while you're doing it, you need to write them down. And let's go into the code replacement file here as we take a look at this. So here's my code replacement file. This is, this is the code replacement file. It's very, very simple, not a lot to it. I've got a basic code replacement section up here. These are kind of the classic code replacements. Job name between equal sign will replace to Pickathon. The city, state, that's all. But now we have some hot codes. And I just want to show this. So this was like what I started out with, maybe just a basic schedule. I said, here's Pickathon, the name of the event. From there, all I had to do was add a few different things to turn this into a code replacement file. These are my camera folders. So when I went to old light, that set, I would in my camera say record to this folder, 102 ES5D. When I went to the pure bathing culture set, switch the camera switch the folder in camera to this folder, etc. And then there's other folders on the card for other things from the scenes that are not captured in these folders. But then the code replacement file or the hot codes can add in some metadata to address those as well. Another kind of interesting thing I did with this was to show I added this color class, and let's go back into how this worked in hot codes in the actual images. So say Andrew Bird was the headliner and high priority images. I added a green color code to all those automatically. And I did that with the hot code by having the color class add to be 3. And for all the ones that were not found, that were sort of extras, which show up in the folder on their own needs review, are all color classed red to help me find those. And these are just scenes from the rest of the festival that aren't related to any specific stage. All right, let's go back into this hot code file. So as we see here, the only folder we're looking at is the only variable we're looking at is folder. So with Photo Mechanic looks at the folder and it sees, whenever it sees the hot code artist, it checks the folder. What folder is this file in? If it's in this folder, it inserts old light. If it's this folder, inserts that band name. And I just have, I've added a keyword field to have sort of a short code kind of thing, which I can put both in the keyword and in the folder name. So let's take a look at my metadata template. First of all, let's take a look at the ingest dialog that I used to do this. So here we go. We've got Photo Mechanic creates the today sortable number folder, which was 2023 0202. I added a job tag, which was Pickathon, and that came from the job dialog here, which had the code replacement for job name, which came from the job name here. So I put Pickathon here. And the goal, by the way, with this is that you would, once you get your template set up in Photo Mechanic, you don't have to change the templates very much. You basically just change your code replacement sheet. So for the next job, if I had a different festival, I would just change this thing, this information, reload that into Photo Mechanic, and I theoretically shouldn't have to muck around too much with my templates in Photo Mechanic. Photo Mechanic is going to get this information dynamically. So I can just, once I have the code replacement file loaded in, I call up a preloaded template that I've done here. And like I said, this is the one for the Pickathon, or I could just be for concerts in general. Let's take a look at the IPTC template. Here's how, let's look at the rename, by the way. the full files were all renamed with the event. We put in the artist name, we put in the date, we put in the photographer name. Back when I was shooting, they always asked to put the photographer name in the file name. I don't know if they do that anymore. I don't know what you kids are up to, but let's, so for example, let's go back in. So if I just look at the file name, this file name has Bigthon, artist name, date, photographer name, and the frame number all in the file name if I need it. So, you know, whatever your file naming convention is that your publication that you're shooting for requires, get that set up first so that you don't have to do it later. Just do that in Ingest. Will save you a lot of time. All right, back to the metadata template. We applied this metadata template as it came in. And here we have the hot code for artist, the variable for event that came from this field here, which was the job name, which came from the hot code sheet in the beginning. The city, this got put in the city field, so that wherever, once this field is filled out, city, wherever you put in the variable city will show up. So if I wanted to add the city to the keywords, I could do that as well, city. So that could be applied. That's how you would sort of automate that process. So that could be added to the keywords. Oh, thank you, Dan. I'm glad to know everything hasn't changed since back in the day. But yeah, here we go. And we have, I have mandatory photo credit. So if you're working with multiple photographers, you can just still have the same template. You can have the credit will come from this credit field down here. So if you have a code replacement file that will insert this data into your code replacement file, you can put a code to put that in the credit, and then wherever you use credit elsewhere in the metadata, that will be copied over as well. I've got some alt text here, just kind of a basic alt text. This is a relatively new field that was added to the IPTC data structure, but it's going to become more and more important. I think you'll want to pay attention to it. There's talk that the ADA might require it for some things, so a lot of publications might need you to include alt text with their images at some point in the near to mid future. So it's I'm getting in the habit of putting some sort of information in my alt text fields now. Alt text is an accessibility feature, accessibility field. So when differently abled, visually abled people look at images on the web or with screen readers or on the phone, they have something else to rely on instead of just looking at the image. Typically, alt text is a little bit more descriptive than this, but for each image, I would start with this, and then if I'm sending this off to a publication, I would look at the actual image and fill in like more descriptive alt text. So if I'm in here, I might say, live performer on stage wearing a hat, etc., like that. So, but that's just my placeholder. Always want to mention alt text. It's kind of an important issue for me personally, and I want to see more people using it. So that's alt text. All right, let's take a look at that. All right, we covered the exception row here. We covered the fact that we can put regular code replacements and hot codes in the same file. Let's do this again. I've got another set of images, another set of cards here. These were courtesy of a photographer named Ryan Loco. I invited him to this event. I don't know if he shows up, but he might watch it again. Thank you very much, Ryan. I worked with him. I interviewed him about his workflow a little bit to come up with some of this stuff. And I tried to tailor this part of it to at least some of his workflows to help him. So hopefully he can catch this. But let's go ahead and look at this. I have where are we? There we go. So I have this is from a tennis match. Similar concepts here. We're going to go a little simpler. We're not going to put everything into different folders. We're going to dump everything in the same folder. But we're going to see how this little trick here of putting the color class on the images that need review, how this will help. Ryan is here. All right, good to see you. Ryan, thank you so much. I'm glad you can be here for this. All right, so we have images on a card from this event. The images on the card have no metadata attached to them currently. They're empty. Let's download this and load it into Photo Mechanic. Download as a TSV. Come over here to Finder and dump that in my PM parts file. Place that. All right, now in Photo Mechanic, let's get rid of the concert sheet for now. We'll add in the tennis hot code sheet. All right. Let's close some of these. We can leave open. Close these out here, and we'll go into the ingest. We have card 2. We're going to use, I've created the ingest template tennis. We see similar things. We are gonna put it into a today folder, and then we're gonna have job. This time the job is gonna come from it's gonna have City Open 2022. So go to the short code for this. We're just gonna rename them with the date sort and the frame number. But let's look at the metadata template. Here's where we have something. We have player 1 versus player 2. So for each match, this is the object name is going to be different. For each match, which were recorded in different folders on the camera, we'll apply the different caption. They're all going to have their different keywords here. But remember, the keyword for the ones that the code replacement file didn't see is going to say needs review. So let's go back into Code Mechanic. And we got some of the other things fit in here, featured org, etc. There's Ryan's info. Thanks again, Ryan. So that's in. We've got the code replacement file used. Let's go ahead and ingest this and see what we got. Let's hope this works. So here we go. This was very fast. These are all JPEGs just to make this quicker. Created the City Open folder. Here's all the files here. They've been renamed with the date of the event, the frame number. If we come in here and look at the metadata, we see each match has different names in there based on the information from the code replacement file. We had player 1, player 2. And I had originally thought of this as being applicable to combat sports, mixed martial arts, karate. And that's how I originally caught on to Ryan, because I know he had shot some of that as well. So I feel like this also is good for a lot of one-on-one events where you have a lot of separate events at a single day. Whether there's a lot of fights, a lot of matches, a lot of stages at a music festival. The more of those you have, then the more time you save by this method of using hot codes. Let's go into Photo Mechanic. But as we see here, there were a couple of these. Maybe there was a folder on the card, and let's go into Finder and actually look at that card. So these are the 4 folders that I had in there, but there was one folder that maybe was on the card from before where I didn't format it. Photo Mechanic ingested those files, but it tagged them with a red color class so they can see, oh, these weren't picked up by the code replacement or the hot code file. And if you look at these files, these metadata for these files, just because it did throw in a generic caption in here based on the exception row that I put in the code replacement file. But I also added the needs review keyword. So if I didn't want to use the color class, I could search this, for needs review. Make sure it's in the keywords. Oh, didn't want that actually correct. I always forget to turn off that. There we go. So then it shows me which images need review, and then I can go, oh, this was from a different thing. I can move these into another folder or delete them. But that's why you would do that. So that as you ingest this, like where did these images come from? You'll know that. All right, that was that's it. That's the second part of the sort of ingest portion of the demo. Interested to know your feedback, and you don't have to put it in the chat now, but if you have any other feedback, hit me up on Twitter or email. I have to say I'm a little bit proud of how this workflow came out. A lot of this I owe to Jeff Vogan. He's a CameraBits ambassador. I don't know if he invented this, but he certainly has pioneered the use of folders in Canva to really come up with mind-blowing workflows. I think he consults for the PGA. I think he consults for UFC. He's really a great workflow mind, and he's the one who kind of tipped me off to using folders in Canva to do this sort of thing. So big shouts out to Jeff Vogan. He also gives workshops if you ever feel like you want to level up on Photo Mechanic workflow even further. Check out Jeff Vogan. I believe it's jeffvogan.com or just search for Jeff Vogan. It's pretty easy to find, and he's all over the CameraBits social media feeds as well. We seem to shout him out loud. So keep an eye out for Jeff Vogan. He's the one who came up with a lot of this idea, but it's that's where this came from. Just we wanted to give him credit for that. All right, the third part of the demo here for hot codes, and we're moving along pretty quickly here, is we're going to use, and this I've done a separate video on this, but I wanted to use this to show it again, but also use this as a jumping point to show using the namespace if you want to load multiple code replacement files at the same time. So scenario 3, third part of this demo, we'll stay in Photo Mechanic here. We've got some files that to be tagged. So I have an assortment of photos here, and these photos have really no metadata. They have no metadata. Come in here. But I have metadata. I have a lot of metadata for these images, and it's stored in a spreadsheet. So let's go back to my spreadsheet and see photo metadata. So say I have a spreadsheet here, just when maybe I did it, maybe an assistant. I said, give me data for these images. Maybe they came from a client. I said, here's all the information, title, caption, some alt text, some keywords for these images, and let's file them. That's a spreadsheet. Using hot codes to apply this information to a set of images in Photo Mechanic is kind of ridiculously easy. This is the basic spreadsheet I was maybe given by a client, or that I came up with. Here's the difference between this and the hot code file. It's basically just that. I added the row to say we're going to look in the file name, and then I added this to say these are going to be the names for the hot codes. And now I can the hot code, whenever it sees, it's going to look in the file name variable for whichever file. If it finds this actual file name, it will apply. So for title, it will apply this title, this caption, this alt text, and this keyword. So let's go back into, actually let's download this and load it in. Don't forget that as I did last time. Download TSV. Right. And we're going to remove that this time, but we'll get into multiples in just a second. Code photo metadata. All right. Actually, I didn't move it over. Let's make sure I do that. All right, now let's go back in here. There we go, codes, fresh and new. All right, so to do this, to apply that metadata from that spreadsheet, select all. We're just gonna apply a metadata template, which is Command I or Control I. I've created the template down here for, make sure I have this, metadata from TSV. Very simple. It's just the hot code for keywords, hot code for alt text. These are the column headers that were in the original spreadsheet. Let's apply this to the selected. Now we go into these images, and all that information is now tagged into the files as it existed in the spreadsheet. This was another big one for me. I liked how this one came out. So that another good workflow accelerator. If you, especially. Sometimes I will take notes out in the field on my camera. I will say, if I'm out shooting and I want to know information that I want to add to images later, I might dictate it into an app on my phone, and then I can paste that information into a spreadsheet, turn it into a code replacement file, and apply it to files that way. So hopefully this is helpful. All right, those are the three main use cases that I'm aware of for hot codes. I'm sure there are a million more different ways you can use them. But the last thing I wanted to cover is what happens when you want to use different hot code files at the same time for whatever reason. I know some people at like really big sporting events sometimes have to have different hot codes files, that one only for athletes' names, one for different venues, things like that, because it's so complex. So I want to show you how to, if that situation comes up, how to do that. So we're in here and we've got this hot code, but say now I want to load in a different hot code file with the photo metadata hot codes. Let's say I wanted to add in the one for the concert for Pickathon here. I'm gonna say, oh, that's good. I'll click OK. Oh, I get an error. Coding placements, one or more errors occurred. The reason is because I have two hot codes files, but they aren't in different namespaces. So let's take a look at the file here. Let's go back into. So to add a namespace to your code replacement file, very easy. Just this / $ and put a namespace. I did NS2 for this one. So let's download this one. Oh, not comma separated. Sorry. Do that. TSV. And then let's go back to the concert one. Let's add a namespace in here. Insert rows, one row above. I'll call this NS3. Let's download that again. So there's something you're going to have to do to your templates as well for this to work. So now once a hot code file has a namespace, the hot code is no longer just artist in square brackets, it's ns3.artist in square brackets. So I'm going to show how this works in, let's go back to, let's download this one because it has a namespace here. Let's go into Photo Mechanic. And before I do that, I want to show you how I change the template. So go back into the metadata template. Let's see when I'm looking with the Piccolin. So I have a lot of hot codes in here with the square brackets. And so I need to change all these to, instead of key, it would be NS3 key. There's a way to do this. There's a shortcut to do this. It's helpful if you're good with text files. But I'll show you how I would do it. Instead of going through, you could go through by hand and find wherever you have the square bracket, add the NS period, paste it in there. But I'm going to save this file as just an XMP file, PM metadata. All right. I'm going to go into my downloads. I'm going to open this in a text editor that I like. I'm going to open up with BB Edit. It's my text editor of choice. And here's the XML file. I can now do a, where are we? A find and replace. I can replace just the bracket with bracket NS and 3 period. We'll replace all. The good thing about these XMP files is brackets are not used for any of the code in the file. So you know that if there's a bracket in this file, it's something that you typed in yourself. So let's do that. Let's save it. And now, back in PhotoMechanic, I can now load that file back into PhotoMechanic. This better work. There we go. So there we go. All the hot codes have now had the NS3 added to that. So that's how you need, if you have a complex template like this and you need to add a namespace to it, that's how you would do it. Once you have the namespace added to your files, you can load in as many hot code files as you need. Maybe you might not have to do that. Like I said, I very rarely need multiple hot code files running at the same time. So, but I'm glad that demo worked. I was thinking about that, how I would do that. I'm glad that worked. All right, let me check the chat to see if there are any follow-up questions. Danny, thank you very much for the comments. I'm really, really happy this helped. I really want to see this, people make use of this, because I really like it when people kind of can speed up their workflow and start to get things done. I like looking at pictures. I don't like seeing people wrestle with files. So if the more pictures I can see, it's good for me personally. And I'm not gonna save that. We'll do that later. But that's it, folks. That was hot codes. I want to thank you for coming in. If there's more documentation in our website, camerarisk.com, if you go to the help section. If you have more questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to our team. We have live people on the phone during business hours here on the West Coast. Give us a call. It's on our contact page. We'll try to walk you through if you're troubleshooting a template or a code replacement file. Give us a call. We can help you with that. Send us an email if it's after hours. We'll do. We try to get back to you within 24 hours. Customer service is a big deal for us at CameraBits because we are a very, very small company. So our connection with our users is, we would like it to be real, because we're all in this because we all love to see what people are doing out there with their cameras. All right, yeah, and remember, just a reminder, you can rewatch this video. As soon as I'm done and I click stop, I end the stream, YouTube will process the video and you can come back to the same URL and rewatch the whole thing. You can change the playback speed. As I said, I know some of this went by quickly. I know there was a lot of things in the field. Download the PDF that's in the description. Reminder, it's in the description of this video. There's a PDF that had screenshots of all the different templates that I used. There's a link to the Google Sheet for the template that I used to create my code replacement files. There's links to help articles. It's all in the description of this video. Check it out. Hopefully it helps you. And like I said, and I'm always happy to chat about it as well. With that, I will bid you adieu. Have a great rest of your day. Happy photographing. Get out there. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm if you're in a cold area. We all have to face that out. Here's going to be a brisk one. But happy photographing. Thank you very much, all. I will see you around. Cheers.